I still love to think about the human-centric part of all of this upheaval, right? Especially on the teacher side. I think students need us more than ever. They need to be able to think critically more than ever. They need our expertise now to help guide them. And this is what I found as well with experimenting with AI with my students, that they're looking to us for guidance. So that teacher-student relationship is even more important, I think, in the age of AI.
You're listening to Speaking of Language, a podcast recorded at the Language Resource Center at Cornell University. Each week, we explore a topic related to language pedagogy and second language acquisition. This week on Speaking of Language,
Dr. Ilka Kostka follows up on her talk about the opportunities and challenges of generative AI in the language classroom.
Welcome to a new episode of Speaking of Language. I'm Angelica Kramer, the director of the Language Resource Center at Cornell University.
And I'm Sam Lupowitz, the LRC's media manager. We are delighted to have Dr. Ilka Kostka on our podcast today. She recently gave a talk as part of our monthly LRC speaker series on generative AI in language education.
We will extend our conversations on insights and implications of Gen AI for teacher development.
Welcome to Speaking of Language, Ilka.
Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you, Angelica. It's really great to be here.
So before we dive into all things Gen AI, we would like to hear from you about your own background and specifically your path with languages. What did that path look like for you?
I've always loved languages and I've always loved music. And I think my background in languages and music are kind of intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
So I started studying French when I was in school. I studied it in high school and then finally had the chance to study German as an undergraduate. Yeah. As an undergraduate student at Penn State in the spring semester of my freshman year. And I couldn't take German in high school because I always had orchestra at the same time. So I was waiting to take German and I finally had my chance.
Wunderbar.
Yeah. Took German for a few semesters and then went to Marburg to study more. And that's where I really developed fluency because I spoke German, of course, every day and took classes that were all in German. And I had to write and read and speak in German all the time. And that's where you really learn the everyday words that you wouldn't learn in the German language class, like bed sheets or hair dryer or things that you need, things you need to survive in the everyday world. Yeah. So developed fluency and continued studying German and linguistics when I came back. Then got a teaching assistantship at the University of Connecticut. So I was a German TA there, got my master's in German studies. And when I graduated, I went to Hungary. So I have relatives in Hungary. I mean, I had gone to Hungary before, but I have relatives in Hungary, so I wanted to take a language class there.
Oh, nice.
Tested into the intermediate level and took a language course for a few weeks in far eastern Hungary in a town called Debrecen. And I don't work on my Hungarian so much. I've lost quite a bit of it, but I still text a lot with my friends in German. Don't speak German so much. Right now, my focus is on English. But I still love to learn a little bit of other languages.
Nice.
So at Northeastern University, I teach English language classes to our multilingual international students. We have 2 pathways programs. One of them is for undergraduate students. It's called the NU Immerse program. And the other one is for graduate students called the Global Pathways program. So I have taught in both programs for the past 10 years. I also serve as a principal instructor. So that means that I develop the courses, I develop the syllabi, all of the materials in Canvas. I help to onboard part-time faculty, and I've been doing that since I started at Northeastern. But in July, I began as what's called a program lead. It's maybe similar to a department chair in other universities. So I oversee both of the programs, support faculty, kind of deal with any curricular issues that may come up. I help to hire part-time faculty, kind of oversee the programs as well, and serve as an advisor to our associate dean.
Great.
Your talk focused on the role of AI in teacher education.
Yes.
Broadly speaking, what are some of the opportunities and challenges teachers and teacher educators are faced with?
Yeah, that's a good question because there really is a mix of both. Let's start first with the opportunities. First, on the teacher side, it can make our preparation for class a lot more efficient. So I use a tool called TWE, and it's for English language teachers. And you can put a link to a YouTube video in there, and it'll create many different materials based on that. So it'll create questions comprehension
Nice.
questions
Yeah.
based on the video. So you don't have to go and watch the whole video. It'll produce it for you in seconds, and it'll produce open-ended questions or true-false questions or multiple choice questions. It'll produce summaries for you. It'll produce warm-up questions that I like to do. I like to engage students in
Nice.
discussion before we listen to something.
Yeah.
So that's just one example of a tool that I use to just prepare for class. It could also, I use it to get ideas for teaching, so ideas for activities to try kind of to switch it up and do new things in class. I use it also to customize materials, so to tailor the content to what I'm currently teaching in the class, which is not always easy to do, to find a poem or a short dialogue on a particular topic that you're studying in class. So that really helps me become a lot more efficient. And you can also customize the materials to a student's language level. So you could either make it a little bit more difficult or make the text a little bit easier for them to understand. I call that leveling the text. So I do that quite a bit. But I think the biggest opportunity, and this is what I was talking about yesterday in my presentation, was that we can use AI with our students. I like the phrase of using AI and using AI to engage students as thought partners with us. So looking at output, asking them questions, asking them to analyze it, to evaluate it. One example of that is generating collocations. So we study vocabulary, and I teach English, and we study vocabulary, and students can ask for sample sentences and then analyze a word in context and analyze the collocations with that word. So, yeah, you really, when you involve students and when you ask them for their feedback and ask them to use AI with you, you get such valuable insights from them. So students as thought partners has been very effective for me, and I think that's is a great opportunity for instructors to engage students in that way. But there are still challenges, and the one that came up yesterday when I was talking to faculty here, and one that comes up a lot is academic integrity, and just making sure that we can measure students' true performance in the language. So how do we know that they're essentially using the language on their own is tricky, and that's one that I don't have all the answers to. I think we're still trying to figure it out.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, especially for writing, it's very difficult to know. How much is too much? Where's that line between using AI as a tool to help you or having it do all the writing and the revising for you? So I think that's the biggest challenge that we have. And another one on the faculty development side is just keeping up with all the developments in AI.
Absolutely.
It's hard because it's changing so quickly and there's so many tools out there, and faculty are busy. Teachers are busy. It's hard to find the time to be reading a lot and to be trying out new activities and new platforms. So that's another major challenge.
So you've done research on this topic as well. And in your talk, you shared that you had uncovered a number of questions that you asked yourself. Some of those questions included, how can we give teachers who are interested in using Gen AI a way in? Or how can we hear and respect all views, especially when there are mixed feelings about AI? So ultimately, you were interested or questioning, how can we teach the teacher to best prepare their students to use AI? So how do we do that?
How do we teach the teacher? That's a great question. Yeah, I think it really starts with using the resources that you have available, because time is a resource, funding is a resource, having access to journals and to literature in this area is a resource, access to formal training, right? That's a resource that we all need. So I think working with whatever you have, and like I said yesterday, it could just be getting together with your colleagues to talk about a platform or an activity that you've used with AI, or to open up Copilot or Gemini or ChatGPT and kind of play around with it, try different prompts, generate an activity, think of a language learning objective that you have, and generate something that would help you reach that objective. That's free, that's easy, that's very low prep way to start. And then there are also so many free materials out there. So like Ethan Malik, for instance, I follow him on LinkedIn and watch his videos that he does with Lalak Malik on YouTube. Lots of great materials there. There are lots of speeches. And I think a lot of that is coming out a lot more for language educators. So there's a lot of free material out there. There are a lot of free courses out there, a lot of readings. But again, the challenge is just trying to keep up. So, I think experimenting for me has been the best way for me to teach myself about these programs, I'm a very hands-on learner, so that works for me. And that's worked for the participants that I
Nice.
mentioned
Yeah,
in my
yeah,
research
yeah.
study. They like to just roll up their sleeves and get into the programs and just start playing with them and trying things out with students. So that's, I think, experimentation. And I would say starting small, as I said yesterday, is a
Exactly.
really, really great way
Yep.
to begin.
Well, and I liked that circle of faculty development that you presented, to ask questions, to start small, to collaborate, to share, to learn, and to just continuously go through that cycle. Yeah, that is
Yes.
definitely the sustainable way forward.
So, can you briefly recap your research findings? What were the attitudes of English language teachers toward Gen AI and their applications of Gen AI to teaching?
Sure. So it was pretty unsurprising to us that the faculty that we included in our research study, our participants had mixed feelings about AI. And I say that it was unsurprising because this is what I've seen by talking to instructors at different universities, both at, talking to instructors at Northeastern, at my home institution, but also outside of Northeastern and other universities in the US. I've been doing a lot of workshops because I love the opportunity to talk to others. I really believe in sharing and exchanging ideas. So as much as I present, someone might learn from me, I'm learning from them as well, because there are always questions
Sure.
that they ask
Yeah.
that I haven't thought about. So, and talking to them and talking to faculty actually outside the U.S. as well. So I've been so lucky to talk to English language teachers in Kuwait and in Turkey and in Pakistan, virtually. And I've seen these mixed feelings, right? Depending on where people are kind of on their AI journey, they still have mixed feelings. So even I found that the power users, and we found this in our study as well, the power users, the ones who are enthusiastically embracing AI and using it a lot and keeping up with all the latest developments, they have mixed feelings about it.
Sure.
The ones who are the beginners also have mixed feelings. And I mentioned the love-hate relationship
Yeah.
that one of the participants said that she has with AI. So when we found that in our study, it just wasn't surprising after talking to other faculty, kind of everywhere in different places, that we're kind of in a moment where we're unsure about how to move forward. There's great possibility for enhancing our teaching efficiency and innovating teaching and creating customized, authentic materials and so many things. But there are also great risks, and there are challenges that we have to face as well that we haven't faced in the same way before. So it really is a mixed bag. And I think acknowledging that is an important way forward as well. Not everyone's on board.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think just like with anything, when something new arrives and pops up, there are lots of questions about the unknown, I guess, right?
Especially when it pops up so quickly.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's key. Like this seems to have exploded. Now AI is really nothing new, but I think the release of ChatGPT in
Right.
late 2022 was released to the public. It really made it very accessible for the public to access these kinds of tools, and then it just took off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So thinking about best practices in this ever-changing context, you shared your approach of co-creating guidelines with students regarding the ethical use of AI, and you used a stoplight as an analogy there.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit more about this and also share your students' reactions to this approach?
To the stoplight approach?
Yeah.
Yes. So I have to give credit to my colleague, Rachel Toncelli. She is a lecturer at Northeastern, and we've been working closely on AI for the past 2 years. So she and I have conducted this study. We've written a lot together about this. We have presented our ideas together. We've worked on so many different projects. But what we just do day to day is just share ideas for lessons. So I'll just text her an idea. She'll write back, or I'll send her a handout and ask her for her feedback. She'll use it, adapt it, tweak it, and so forth. So it really helps to have someone, and my other colleagues as well, we collaborate a lot on this. It helps to have someone who you can bounce ideas off
Sure.
of. So the stoplight, I have to give her credit. That's her idea. She had tested it in the summer with her students, and I tried it for the first time this past fall in early September. And, I think a stoplight is just a very simple analogy. It's, red kind of always means stop or caution or, be careful. Here it means inappropriate use. Green means go. Green means if you have the green light, even with that idiom, it means that you can do something. And then yellow is sort of in between. And it just really is a way to get students talking about different kinds of scenarios. So, we have a statement in our syllabus about AI use, but this is a lot more detailed.
Right.
It's for specific assignments. It's for instance, creating a slide deck or writing the introduction to a paper. It's a lot more specific, but the sentences are very short. So it's kind of easy for students to just pick a color for
Sure.
one of those statements.
Yeah.
It's not kind of a long paragraph, a long list of ideas. It's just kind of broken down very easily. But what I found was that it's just so interesting to go through the statements with students and see what they have to say about each one. And I've heard some faculty say, well, what if students, someone says that it's red and other students said that a statement is yellow and green? What if you have mixed views? And I said, that's actually good because then you can talk about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you can really
Yep.
try to reach a shared understanding of what a particular statement, what color it would be. So it's kind of interesting when you involve students in that, and they love talking about it, and then they have to explain their ideas. And it's the same with faculty. You can use this in a faculty workshop as well. I've done this with faculty. It's okay if everyone disagrees. Let's talk about it. It really gives us food for thought. It's actually more interesting if people disagree because then you can really dig deep into the statement and really talk about the rationale for why you've chosen a color.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, speaking of analogies, you showed us an image of a microwave during
Yes.
your talk. Can you tell us more about that?
I just love that picture so much, and I wanted to throw it out to the audience. Well, first of all, I should say that was the first time ever that I put a picture of a microwave on any kind of slide deck in my life. I mean, why would you? Why would you ever put a microwave when you're talking about language teaching or language learning? It makes no sense. But I thought, let me have a little fun with this because that's one of the participants said that Gen AI was like a microwave. So I thought, let me ask the audience what they think. And I got some great answers yesterday. Someone said, it's convenient. Someone said that microwaves are everywhere. We use them all the time. I thought those were great analogies, kind of great answers. But Gen AI is like a microwave. And sometimes on a slide deck, I'll show a picture of a toolbox that has a wrench, a screwdriver, a measuring tape, a level. And I kind of compare AI or Gen AI to that and say it's a tool in our toolkit. And some tools are good for some purposes.
Sure.
And some tools are not, right? So I always say, if I want to measure a table, I'm not going to use a wrench. That's not going to help me get the measurements that I need. And I kind of see it as the same.
Right.
It's a very simplistic way. Of course, Gen AI is a lot more complex than that. I'm not trying to simplify it. But I do think those images, when you talk to faculty, they tend to kind of stick. And I gave a talk, I think it was in the summer, and someone said, I remember the microwave. That's going to stick with me. So because it is so striking and because it's so off the wall, you kind of remember it.
Yeah.
Gen AI, like a microwave, it's good for some things and not good for others.
Yep. I like it. That's good.
Yeah.
Has there been other notable feedback from teacher educators and teacher education candidates around the fear and hype of Gen AI? Anything that has come across your desk in your work and in your experience of working with these individuals?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of teacher education, I've read that there isn't a lot of support in teacher education programs, just generally, for preparing future teachers to integrate Gen AI into their teaching. So I think that's going to have to be an important component of teacher education programs, whether it's language, they're language teachers or K through 12 teachers or whatever kind of teaching.
Yeah.
In any kind of program, I think that component has to be included. Whether these teachers are going to be using AI or not, I think they at least need to know about it and know how these models work, know what they are, know the names, know the terminology. So, for instance, I was talking to an educator about a month ago, and she had learned the word hallucination, didn't know the word hallucination. So the lingo related to AI is important to at the very least, to know about. And I think that's an important part of teacher ed programs.
Thinking specifically about language education, what are some creative ways to use Gen AI at different levels of instruction?
That's a great question. So yesterday I talked about the image. You might remember the pepperoni pizza with the pineapple on it.
Yes.
That was taking a risk. With Rachel, we created these images in the spring because I wanted students to just practice talking about something in English that they had never seen before. I know for sure that a picture of a banana boat, actually it was a cucumber boat with banana people on it, floating in a river with oranges and apples, is an image they very likely have never, ever seen in their life. There's another one of flamingos that are making pancakes.
Oh, nice. Okay.
When do you
Good.
ever see that?
Yeah.
Pretty much nowhere.
Yeah.
So just, part of it was the shock value. Part of it was the creativity. Part of it was the fun. But it was a risk. I thought either my students are really going to love this or they're going to think I'm crazy and they're going to hate it and think, what did I just do in my class? And that's a creative way to, use Gen AI to create something really new, but also to make sure that you're reaching the objectives that you set. So my objective was to have students apply this impromptu speaking framework in order to speak impromptu in front of the class. And I achieved that objective and more because they really had fun with it and helped to relax them. I mean, going to the front of the room and speaking impromptu is never easy.
Sure.
It is not easy in a second language. I've been there. I got my master's in German. I had to give presentations in German and had to give presentations in Germany. And it's not easy to present and stand in front of the class in any language, especially if it's your second language, can be even harder. So we wanted to have fun. And I got feedback from students. They said they loved it. They enjoyed it. And it was great. And I've used those images for other things as well. So that's just an example of how you could put in a prompt, get something that you've never seen before and really run with it and have fun in class while, again, still achieving the objective.
Yeah. Wow. Nice. Yeah, interesting. I have all these images now twirling in my head
Yes.
of flamingos flipping pancakes.
Oh, and
Or
there's a
whatever.
chicken jazz band, chickens that are standing on stage. One has a saxophone and one of them is at the microphone. Just things that you could really never, ever imagine. Ever.
Nice. So, Ilka, if you had to distill your recommendations for professional learning and change management in this increasingly AI-focused world, what would be the major takeaway our listeners should remember?
Major takeaway. So, I have my graph of all the different steps that I think are important for faculty development. But I would say the major takeaway is to not be afraid, be open-minded, just try something, just start, get started somewhere. That's exactly what I did about 1.5 years ago. I just created an account for ChatGPT and logged in and tried a prompt and then started talking to my students about it. So just taking the first step. Sometimes that can be the hardest, right? The first step into something that's very unknown. So starting small with a single step, trying something new, creating an account, playing around with it, and then doing it with students as well is a great way forward. So I would say starting small with an open mind and no fear.
Terrific. Well, and earlier you mentioned some online training and courses around Gen AI. Are there specific resources you can recommend?
That's a good question. I tend to draw from a lot of different kinds of sources. So I mentioned before that I follow Ethan Malik on LinkedIn, and there are a lot of great videos on YouTube that you can watch that he has about teaching specifically with AI. A lot of background, for beginners. I think those videos are very helpful. I just try to read as much as I can whenever I can. I can't think of a single resource because part of it is reading and watching videos and following people on social media. But the other part of it is, like I said, just experimenting, just trying things in class. And that's the way that I learn best. I'll just, create an account. Like, for instance, I've been using PDF.ai, created an account and just uploaded a PDF and just kind of looked at the questions that I created. And then I'll try them out with my students. So part of it is our resources that we have available, and the other part is just doing it yourself. I really think that's the best way to learn.
Yeah, very, very true. There you have it. You heard it on Speaking of Language. Just experiment.
Yep.
So we would be remiss not to ask this very important question when we talk about AI.
Okay.
Should our listeners be preparing themselves for the robot uprising?
I don't think about robots too much, to be honest. I don't know. I still love to think about the human-centric part of all of this upheaval, right? Especially on the teacher's side. I think students need us more than ever. They need to be able to think critically more than ever. They need our expertise now to help guide them through this. And this is what I found as well with experimenting with AI with my students, that they're looking to us for guidance. They want to know how they can or cannot use AI. So that teacher-student relationship is even more important, I think, in the age of AI. So I guess to answer the question, I don't think so much about robots. I don't love things that are kind of automated. Like I don't have that machine that cleans your floors, or I don't talk to Siri. I don't really like that.
Yeah, I hear
I'm
you.
old-fashioned in some ways, even though I like to use AI a lot.
Ilka, where can our listeners find out more about you and your work?
That's a great question. I use LinkedIn a lot, so I'm always posting about things that I'm doing. And if I have articles, I just believe so much in sharing material. So I love to share what I'm doing. I love to see what others are doing. And LinkedIn makes that really easy. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can search for my name. My name is pretty uncommon. So I think you'll easily find me on LinkedIn. I don't have a website, but I'm thinking about creating a website where I can put a lot of my teaching materials and ideas and links to podcasts and links to YouTube presentations. That's in the works. It's hard to find the time to do that.
Sure.
And I just really need time to be able to create a website. But I would say email me or let's connect on LinkedIn. I love to see what everyone else is doing.
Wonderful. Well, Ilka, this was great. We could keep discussing all things Gen AI with you. But before we sign off, we would like to ask you to share a word with us in a language that you speak, you love, you are learning, you may want to learn, that feels good to say.
I have a colleague at Northeastern who's from Lithuania, and she's been teaching with us for so many years. And I have a friend in Vilnius, but I've never been there and didn't know one word of Lithuanian. So I looked up the word hello just so I could say it to her, just so I could say something.
Nice.
I like to learn a little bit of every language. So I know little snippets of words in so many different languages. Because I think when you can say something to someone in their language, it really goes a long way.
Oh, absolutely.
So I said merhaba yesterday in Turkish to one of the instructors I was talking to. So fun. But anyway, going back to Lithuanian, I learned how to say hello, labas. And she taught me how to say thank you, which is ačiū. How cool is that? To an English speaker, it's just something so unexpected. When you say ačiū in English, it has one meaning. And in Lithuanian, it means thank you. So I thought that's something I will never forget. So I love to say ačiū.
I like it.
Beautiful.
It's fun.
Well, thank you so much for speaking of language with us, Ilka.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed being here at Cornell with all of you. Thank you.
We'll be back next week with a recap of our 4th annual World Languages Day.
Until then,
Auf Wiederhören.
The Language Resource Center is located on the ground floor of Stimson Hall on Cornell's main campus in Ithaca, New York. Check us out on the web at lrc.cornell.edu.
And follow Cornell LRC on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Speaking of Language is produced by Angelika Kramer and Sam Lupowitz.
Recorded by Sam Lupowitz.
Original music by Sam Lupowitz, Dan Gable, and Joe Gibson.
Thanks also to the College of Arts and Sciences at Cornell University.
As a reminder, the ideas and opinions expressed on this podcast do not reflect those of the College of Arts and Sciences or any other official entity of Cornell University.
We thank our listeners, and do stay tuned for our next episode.